So sometimes in coaching, things get hard. It can be a pretty challenging journey, depending on what kind of journey you're on, But I've just heard a story of someone who's currently working with a coach and questioning whether this is working and how much of that is up to them, how much is it is up to the coach. And I noticed that in coaching quite a lot, that sometimes the client can look for validation from the coach. And I think it's a fair question of where can I get that validation from? Ideally, and this is what was in the story that I just heard, it's how can I create that for myself? And the hard truth is that we can't have certainty about it, just as we can't really have certainty about much in life at all, right? Is this the right path? Well, I don't know. Sometimes it feels right, and sometimes it feels really hard. And there's a page in the little penguin book I'm reading to my daughter where the penguin is talking to various animals, and it's talking to the owl and asking, well, if I keep falling down, surely it's the wrong path. But maybe falling down is part of the process, and maybe the easy road, later on you'll find that it wasn't really worth walking it, right? So, but if you keep falling, you keep hurting yourself. Maybe there's a path of less resistance, and there's a philosophy about taking the path of least resistance. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I can see why maybe often going with the flow can really help life flow better. But I also know for a fact that if you just always choose the easy road, life is less meaningful because there's so much meaning in the struggle and in the challenge and in overcoming, right? So just because a path is hard and difficult and you're doubting yourself doesn't mean it's the wrong path and it's not worth to keep going. But then you can't know, right? Unless you actually walk it and then look back. So that's the thing about life. There's so many different paths, and nobody can tell you what's the right one. And there's different philosophies and different perspectives on what's the path most worthwhile going. At times in my life, I look down at the people choosing the easy path and keeping life as stable as possible because I like experiences, and but also then I look at some of the people who have the whole range of all the experiences, and they're taking massive risks to experience it. So massive highs and massive lows. So, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm not actually at that end of the spectrum of wanting to get the most out of life. So I think everybody has to make some decisions at how much risk they're inviting into their life and how much stability they're wanting to create and security from that. So when you find yourself in a situation where you're working on anything, whether that's in coaching or at work or in a relationship, and you're doubting whether this is the path worth going, I can't answer that for you, right? The only thing I can do is hold space for someone to figure this out, and make informed decisions in the face of uncertainty, right? So they cannot be fully informed. But you can take this leap of faith, and faith must not need to be religious faith, right? But it's like a belief that this is worthwhile going in the face of not knowing whether that's actually the case. So validation, I wish I could just give it to people, and I know there's plenty of coaches who just give it to you, but it's a fake validation because I like to comfort people, of course. Naturally, we all like to comfort our clients when we value them. But I think if we are offering comfort through validation too quickly, it's not actually a kindness to the client, right? Even though it feels like this in the short term. But continue to hold space, to continue to sit with someone in this not knowing and helping them to gather some validation where it's possible, and accept that there might not be all the validation that we so desire at this very moment. I think that's the kindest thing we can do. It's the most real thing we can do. But I think in the long term, it empowers people to stand in their own choices and to keep going because they wanted to and not because they felt pushed, or convinced or inspired. Something external. I want most of our decisions to be internal and you own them. And if there's external influence, to be aware of that, so we can still make our own decisions. That's what's most important to me. So how do we know whether we're on the right path? Well, we can't. Some feel it, but we can continue to check into that as we are along the way. Create pauses along the way to check in with ourselves and see why we're still keeping going. And then we just need to continuously choose to keep going or to change course. As long as we're staying in motion, I think it's a life well lived.